Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today, welcome back Kyle, one of our traders and head of market mastery. We're going to be talking about everything that's going on in global markets and trying to tie it all together. So stocks and bonds and Bitcoin and everything that Trump's doing and how it might affect markets because we are living through such unique times. So any thoughts off the top of your head, mate, before we dive into some charts?
Well, I mean, probably what you're about to get into is, it does seem like Trump and Howard Lutnick and, Bessent are all trying to get basically the markets to crash in some way so they can refinance this 7.6 trillion or something like that at a lower rate. So, we're
Yeah.
sort of at the hands of that at the moment, I kind of feel, even though we're having the most crazy bullish news we've ever had in Bitcoin and crypto, it just feels like amazing news articles, stories coming out constantly. But then, like, the price doesn't do anything because we don't have those liquidity flows yet, and the stock market is constantly dumping. So there's a few interesting things to look at on the chart, but yeah, we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, I've read different figures. So some people say it's 7 trillion that needs to be refinanced this year. Other figures are as high as 11. And obviously, if you're the US, you don't want to be refinancing $10 trillion of debt at 5% interest rates. You'd much rather have that at zero or somewhere like Japan that was negative. You know what I mean? So this is kind of that easy monetary policy that we lived through for decades that allowed everything to pump that isn't there yet. And then there's the other question of, well, if Trump is really trying to you know, dismantle and expose a lot of the corruption and the wasting of this expenditure and so on, are we going to see, does he even want a controlled sort of demolition of the stock market? Yeah, these are the kind of things that we're just waiting out to see. Because old Trump, last time he was in was very much, record highs, tweeting about it and whatever. Whereas this time it's kind of, they're talking about ending tax for people that earn under 150K today. I don't know if you saw that tweet in
For
America.
that, I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, so there's just so many different dynamics in play, and it's wondering, well, is there going to be this sort of redistribution away from all this corruption and super wealthy, and even the banking system, and ending the Fed and the IRS, and what does that look like on a stock market chart? And is that even bad for the average guy on the street who doesn't really own a lot of wealth? Is he kind of happy to see the stock market crash if it means his cost of living is going to go down a bit and he's going to have less tax and all this type of thing? So we just haven't seen this environment before.
Yeah, it's definitely a spanner in the works, that's for sure. I'm really interested to see what happens over the next 12 months because I just feel like the whole change of getting rid of the internal revenue service and having external revenue service. I read something. I think Howard Lutnick was saying overnight that they're looking at charging businesses a membership to be able to sell their product to Americans inside America, and they're going to use that to replace the taxation for people under 150K. I was just like,
Okay.
man, this is a crazy area we're entering into at the moment.
And that's why I think that at the end of the day, markets are forward looking and they don't like uncertainty. And there's just so much uncertainty because any tweet can change, years of legislation that's been in place on a dime at the moment. And we haven't really seen that reflected in the charts just yet. Like the markets aren't crashing. There's just sort of healthy pullbacks in stocks and bonds and that type of thing. So the big money's not like panicking or anything like that just yet. And all our metrics that we look at are still pretty healthy for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Alts are a different story, like we've spoken about, because it's just so spread out that liquidity wise this cycle. But where do you want to start, mate? What chart do you think is most important for telling this picture? Is it the US dollar or just the stock market or?
Mate, I wouldn't mind looking at the Tesla chart just quickly.
Oh, we were joking about that the other day, weren't we? I might tell that story while you get the chart up, but I'm not sure if it was you or Tom that was joking about, hey, Tesla's down 55%, and it wouldn't surprise us to see, Trump tweet that he's buying a Tesla or something now that Elon's his new best mate. And literally, we woke up the next day to the news that Trump was turning the White House lawn into a Tesla showroom or something like that.
Yeah, 55%, pretty deep, and that cleared up the last gap that was down here as well, right? So came down and hit that last gap that was open, and they've all been cleaned up, which is basically from when it started getting really bullish in October. But the thing that I'm finding the most interesting at the moment is this weekly. So it's only got, pretty much 2 days of trading left. But, how does this weekly candle end up closing? Because if this closes something like this or, it closes green, and then the next week we get a candle that looks like this, like that's the whole market's probably going to rally. Do you know what I mean? And so I'm just watching like really closely what's happening here. We had the Nasdaq, very oversold, which is pretty rare that it gets this deep. Down to pretty much 22 on the RSI on the daily time frame. The last time we sort of got to those sort of levels was the first initial crash that we had when the bear market started in 2022. And then the only other time it's been that deep, pretty much around those levels, not even that deep, it got down to 25, was COVID. Yep. Right. So currently the RSI, the daily RSI is so oversold. We're more oversold than what it was in the COVID dump, which lasted, how long did that last? 32 days, right? This one, how long have we lasted now since the top? This has lasted 20 days so far. So I don't know. I feel like it's extremely overstretched in one direction. We're bouncing off the previous year VWAP. So I easily could see this, get some sort of momentum and bounce. And then, we see, do we roll over again, which is kind of like what happened in COVID. So the key is, we've had one sell-off. You need to see, does this come back up and reject off, the previous range low down here and then roll over from there? Or does it reclaim that and head back up to the highs? Because if it reclaims this range low through here and heads back up to the highs, then, it's probably just going to range here and then eventually take off again. So that's really like, when you're looking at markets as an analyst, you're trying to work out, okay, are we still in an uptrend here? Which, we are still in an uptrend because you look at this higher low, higher low, higher low. You're in this sideways consolidation. And so what we want to see here is, do we bounce here and then roll over and break this low? Because then that we start to enter pretty bearish territory there, right? And that's like people will all start talking about, okay, we're moving into a bear market. So like that's really the key to watch for, I think. Does this bounce and then roll over and make a new low? Because then we're in a high time frame downtrend, right? And that'll be the first time that's happened since, basically we're in the bear market in 2022. And it can take a while for that to play out. Like, we had a really big sell-off, hit very oversold, about the same levels of oversold, and then we bounced and then rolled over. Then we sort of this is really the next peak and then rolled over again from there. So, you have that high gets put in, then lower high, lower high, lower high. Then that eventually breaks and you flip and you go into a series of making higher lows and higher highs. That's what we're really looking for here, is that series of higher highs and higher lows are going to break and we flip into a downtrend, or are we going to stick to making higher highs and higher lows and then everyone just repaints where their trend line is to here, So, yeah, that's probably the main thing I'm watching at the moment, mainly on the Nasdaq and obviously on the ES as well, in the stock market. I should say the S&P 500, and just to see how they go. Because if these finally, if this has just been like a correction, and then Trump eases off for a little bit, we get some more bullish news out of FOMC, which is next Wednesday. So, yeah, I think that's really the key to watch here, because if this can reclaim this key level through here, right, we do something like this, and we go into the range up here, and then it ends up breaking up to higher, then crypto is going to follow for sure, right? And so that's like the main thing I'm watching for. So these weekly closes are going to be really interesting, because if we get a weekly close like this off the 0.618, we get a nice pin bar like this. Then the next week we get a Morningstar reversal, it looks something like this, then we're really on. And I think anything on BTC, if we can get anything that's closing above this range low level through here, which is kind of, I've got it drawn on different charts. It's pretty much like 91K, right? 91 to 92K. We rejected off it twice before we had this big sell-off. If we can go back into an uptrend here and flip this level here, then that's going to be really bullish. So I think that's the most obvious trade to me. Like, we reclaim 92K. I think all the alts will start popping. Solana will recover massively. Sui and all these other altcoins, Ethereum as well, which has been absolutely decimated. They'll all recover. And then, from there, the target is this 137K target. What's going on here? I'm missing a fib level, but there's a macro fib level at 137k up here. I don't know why it's disappeared, but it was on my chart. I'll get it up on my other ones. Or you
Yeah,
can
and I
just read.
guess this is an interesting environment for Bitcoin too, because it's the first time it's kind of been considered a mature asset class in a maybe a downturning stock market and bond market sell off, and even the US dollar, which we'll get to in a second. I don't think that because Bitcoin's got so many different tailwinds and so many different qualities, I think it can still do well, and no matter really what's happening, particularly if the US is tariffing people and making a lot of enemies, kind of thing, economically, Bitcoin becomes more and more of a neutral asset compared to the US dollar, kind of thing. So
Yeah,
I'm still just so bullish on Bitcoin, unless something dramatic changes, we get a black swan or whatever, like into the end of this year, and the future still looks bright.
yeah, I definitely agree with that for sure. So it's going to be really interesting to see, how the rest of this move plays out, because everything that's going on with liquidity flows and everything like that, I think this is probably one of the ones that tells the tale of the tape the most, right? Um, this global M2 macro is starting to really take off, and the DXY just in absolute complete free fall. So, probably the main thing that we need to see happen is the 10-year start to come down, which hasn't really, it's still hanging around 430, so that's probably a bit of a concern. Like, that really needs to come back down for Trump to kind of get his wish. Like, I don't know, where do you think they would be happy to do the refinancing? Because I'm pretty sure it's 7 trillion in June or July, so they want to see this start to roll over. It's going to be really interesting to see what they eventually have to do to get that to end up rolling over.
Yeah, and we've seen China and Japan both being net sellers of the past 12 months of US bonds. Again, so all these things that are happening geopolitically that we talk about in other videos and whatever, it's all really starting to affect global markets. And, people are waiting for the Fed to maybe increase liquidity. But are they going to want to work with Trump and do the right thing for the economy if he's saying, hey, we're going to end you?
Yeah.
Or
And they're all Democrats as well. It's like 95% of the Fed is Democrats. So
And Thomas Massey's, talking about ending the Fed, and he's come out and he's been cancelled lately and been put under the microscope. So I don't think we've seen the end of that story either. But anything else that's interesting in taking your eye at any of the markets recently?
uh, in terms of charts wise, definitely, I think Ethereum is one of the ones I think we have to talk about here. Let me just get that up. Right, so the ETH BTC chart is crazy at the moment. Unfortunately, Ethereum is just really struggling. But how deep do you reckon this is going to go? Do you reckon it's going to come back down to its 2018, 2019 bear market lows before we finally see like that capitulation and bounce? And then obviously that's going to really affect Bitcoin dominance as well, which I think is actually going to end up pushing up to 70% here over the next couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those big influencers that are talking about Ethereum going home and those target levels. So that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's whether or not it gets to that exact level, because, when thousands of people are waiting to buy at a given level, they don't all get to buy that level, as you know. So there's going to be people that have their orders placed before that level. And, whenever we end up having big corrections, it's always the level that everyone wants to buy that you never quite get to. But, yeah, like we've been talking about in our fundamentals videos, Ethereum's kind of lost its narrative a bit, but then Solana's also been in the spotlight and lost its narrative a bit. So, all altcoins are waiting for that next catalyst to go, well, what are we investing in that's more than just speculation? And that's where I think we are going to get a bit of a rotation back to fundamentals and news. And we always end the cycle. And that's where it feels like we've had a cycle within a cycle with the Solana meme coins, pump.fun, and that type of thing, that a lot of them now down 90%, whereas Bitcoin has just had a 30% healthy correction like every other cycle. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Solana down 62%. It's pretty horrific, to be honest. What's Ethereum USD down? 50, 57. So, you know, like both really struggling. The only thing is, like, at least Solana had like a bit of a stronger pump beforehand, but that's horrific. To come all the way back down to previous year value area low. And yeah, we got a nice bounce off it 2 days ago, but like then, you know, like this doesn't look bullish to me. And this looks like it almost needs to come back down and do something like this. And then you get a daily bullish divergence or something like that, and then it bounces. But yeah, I don't know. I don't like it was looking good, and now that just like looks weak again. So I guess I'll try and take another position, get as close to 114 as possible if it comes back down and bounces off that. But yeah, it does look so weak. And I don't know, like how does the narrative of Solana recover again? Because it's taken such a beating now that everyone's just like, well, it's just a scam coin casino. But
Yeah, I think they're going to have some good fundamental announcements, and you need to wash out all that inflated meme coin hysteria that pushed up the Solana price because people have to buy Sol meme coins, and now people are selling out, so it goes down harder. We just need to flush all that out for it can have its next leg and its next narrative. But I guess the other thing to tie all this together is gold and maybe even silver. But with all this global uncertainty, this is the number one place where big investors, and we're seeing all this news about the gold audit. What happens if it's not all there? Super interesting play. And I know plenty of our high net worth clients we work with are in gold and silver, and even saying, well, is it safe to be in stable coins? What do you like better out of Tether or USDC? So these are all the issues. People are saying, where is the safest place to sit a lot of money with all this uncertainty?
so my concern about gold is like, what happens if you're buying paper gold, right? And then it ends up, you know, the supposed gold that's supposedly backing that paper gold isn't actually there.
Oh, 100%. And that's where we see the physical accrue premiums, and physical has always carried a premium. And that's why with partners like, Ainsley Bullion, or if you're in Australia, Perth Mint or whatever, a lot of these storage places have real gold, and you might pay your 1% annual fee or whatever it is for that exact reason. The custody, the security, and actually having physical. Because I completely agree. We've all the us proud conspiracy theorists have known that it's 100 to 1 or even higher on silver of these paper contracts that get traded every day, and the world is heading towards hopefully more transparency with blockchain technology and with these audits and the US aid and blah blah blah. So that's absolutely something that's important. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's kind of like, are we at like I feel like we're almost at the precipice of some massive shift that's about to happen. If they can put the treasury on the blockchain, if they can put voting on the blockchain, and then that spreads throughout the rest of Western democracy, we're going to see some massive shifts in like power going back to the people. I think that's what Elon wants to do. He wants to give power back to the people. And I feel like we could be about to see that happen. But then, we've got all this stuff going on where they keep on saying they're going to release the Epstein list and do all this stuff with the UFO release information and, JFK files. And then, like, where is it? What's going on?
Yeah. Well, there's two paths I see, and that is the good path, that we get more individual input into the democracy. But the bad path is that Elon's already started using AI to go through bills and to simplify them, or to decision make, or to ask employees what they're doing, and are they pushing us towards this technocracy, and then Neuralink and complete biosurveillance in 15-minute cities. So that's the stuff we need to avoid. We need to fight to make sure we have our freedoms and sovereignties, and I'm hoping that that's the direction that goes in. But I don't know. There's still, to me, it's still 50-50 which way this all goes.
Jesus Christ, it's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
One thing I will show the guys, probably the main thing that I'm looking for on the charts at the moment, apart from everything that we've already discussed, a really good one to keep your eye on is the total market cap chart. And at the moment, what we have is this gets a nice weekly close here off the previous year VWAP, and then we can roll that into a Morningstar reversal and start to reclaim some of these levels. That's going to be really bullish. So when you have a massive sell-off correction like this, you need higher and higher time frame reversal setups. Yep. So for me, in my opinion, for us to reverse the current situation we're in after this big sell-off is we're going to need a weekly reversal setup. And if you look at it, like on our stochastics, the weekly is completely oversold. So we're ready for a weekly swing high now. We've seen a lot of things get reset over the last couple of months since December, where everything was sort of peaking out. So, it's going to be really interesting. And we are like, if this can close like this, so obviously, it's hard for me to predict because as a trader, you're supposed to wait until the candles you're talking about have actually closed before you can make decisions. Obviously, this still has 3 days, and 19 hours left in this candle. But if this closes something like this, and then we get our next candle look something like that on the weekly, that happens on Bitcoin and Total, obviously, Total One. That is really the biggest trigger that we have for reversal. Like if you look at the reversal setups on Bitcoin, pretty much every time we've come out of a major consolidation, if you go back and take note of this for yourself over the last couple of years, almost every single time we've come out of a major consolidation, the chart on the weekly has looked like this. Very, very, very consistently. It's like 80% of the time we come out of a consolidation or, Bitcoin has a sell-off like this. The weekly chart looks like this. And then, that's basically a high time frame trigger for us to start to get really bullish, start allocating to altcoins. And then, we're looking for the next weekly to be like this and reclaim the range low. And then it's like, okay, we're on for the next leg up.
Yeah.
So that's the main thing to watch for over the next couple of weeks.
And maybe just finally one more chart if we can, mate. I know a lot of our audience are Aussies, and the Aussie dollar obviously affects the price of your crypto or your gold, and even more so, it's going to start affecting, I think, the costs of our goods with the Trump announcing Australia isn't exempt from these tariffs and so on. So, what are your thoughts on the Aussie dollar?
It doesn't look great here, to be honest, but what I'm expecting to see is the DXY to continue to weaken, right? So this is one concern, right? The DXY has dropped off 6%. And if you look at the AUD, like it's still like in its little consolidation here, like from the lows, it's only up 3%. So even though the US dollar is weakening, the Australian dollar is also weakening. So that is, that's my biggest concern. I just feel like what's going on with the government right now, like our standards of living, I think I was looking at some charts and we're minus 8% or something like that in I can't remember the exact
standard of living, in the past 12 months or since COVID or whatever it is. Australia's the worst country. The standards of living has fallen the most. Yeah.
Like horrific. And I think we all know people are fucking struggling in Australia right now. And I just, I don't know, who would be invested if you're an international investor trying to putting money into Australia. I don't know. And obviously, this has a lot to do with our exports, imports and stuff like that. I just feel like, I don't know. I just felt for a long time, and I feel like it's starting to come to a head, that Australia is just due for a massive crash because we didn't really have like a wipeout in 2008. And we've been riding the coattails of China going through an unbelievable boom. And that money's been flowing out of the US because manufacturing moved to China. And then that money's been flowing from China manufacturing into Australia for natural resources to make their manufacturing stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so we've been riding the coattails of that boom. If the US starts to move manufacturing in a major way back to the US and starts to hurt China, then that monetary flow stops coming to Australia as much. We haven't really done anything with our entire economy apart from dig stuff out of the ground. We're not trying to manufacture anything. We're not trying to use our natural resources to give our businesses in Australia a competitive advantage against the rest of the world. It's just like, I don't know, I just feel like it's just so poorly done to the point where I actually think it's more likely our politicians have just been bribed to give bad deals that sell out the population and they ride off into the sunset with massive, full pockets from some other country or some other massive corporation paid them out because the deals are just that bad. Like on our gas, on all our natural resources, none of these massive companies are paying tax or anything like that as well. So we're giving away like our limited natural resources. They're not infinite. I mean, we have unbelievable amounts of them, but we should be one of the richest countries. We probably should be almost the richest country per capita on the planet because we have such a small population for the amount of land and natural resources that we have. It just really frustrates me and annoys me how badly it's been managed and how the Australian people aren't more prosperous. And then their solution to that is like, oh, we're just going to bring in heaps of immigrants, and now no naturally born Australians can afford to buy a house anymore. Like, that's not a solution.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just feel like it's just, we're not in a good place as a country right now. And even if the US goes through a bit of turmoil right now and then pulls their way out of it, after 6 months, which I think is what's going to happen. They're going to do everything bearish, push the market down, refinance the loans, everything like that. Then they're just going to release heaps of bullish stuff, like really low taxes, like massive tax cuts. They're going to release, all the Bitcoin strategic reserve stuff will start to get passed and come out, and all charts will just go through the roof towards the back end of the year. And then no one will care about wipeouts earlier in the year. But, I could see America rebounding and doing really well, and Australia like continuing to struggle. So I don't know, maybe if this level here doesn't hold, like if we just end up bear flagging here.
Oh, sorry, I've stopped the screen share, but yeah, I think bring it up again if you want to make one more point on the chart.
Yeah, so one last, finally get around to actually talking about the chart. Here we go. Yeah, if we just bear flag here and then roll over and drop this level, like I think it's going to get really ugly, and we could go back to these COVID lows, which are around 55 cents.
Yeah,
just because the economy is just being so badly managed, and I don't know, what do we do? Just import massive amounts of immigration to get ourselves out of this situation?
No, absolutely not. So that's that's where I made that documentary 5 or 6 years ago now, saying Australia's coming financial crisis, and we outlined exactly all these structural weaknesses that we have, and nothing changed. But I think people are also waking up to the fact that it's not just incompetence; it's actually like the corruption, as you say. They're actually selling out and getting these backhand deals. And I said in that doco, the last lever they would pull would be immigration, and now they're flooding the country with immigrants so that the house prices don't fall. And it's just insane. We're starting to see, the standards of living fall, cost of living go up, but also the other stuff that we've seen in Europe, violent crime increase. And then, we wake up this morning to news, there's like a meeting where only Chinese people were allowed in. They were turning away Aussies that had bought tickets and stuff. Like, it's literally like we're this close to being, overtaken or occupied or whatever you want to say. But it's just insane that our leaders have let this happen on their watch, and they come out and smile about it and keep the foot on the accelerator, destroying our society and culture.
Seems to be a trend in every Western country. Like, look at Canada, look at the UK, like, there's something bigger at play. I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's just the the Agenda 2030 and all these globalist New World Order goals, and people are waking up to it. So I hope people do continue to wake up to it and push back, because we have seen countries. I think it was Sweden had their first year of net negative migration, where they've actually started getting rid of a lot of these troublemakers or whatever. So yeah,
nice. I like it.
Cool.
Come on, people, we need to wake up.
Yeah. All right, guys. Hope you've enjoyed those charts. We'll have Kyle on again in future. The links to follow all his stuff and his trading course down below, as always. And we'll talk to you again soon, mate. Cheers.
Thanks a lot, guys. Chat soon.